What is up, guys? Welcome to the top 10 Arrowverse Moments of the Week, episode 5. You may notice that this video, as opposed to the first 4 episodes of the series, does have my voice in it. The reason for that is because all 4 episodes of the series so far have been copyrighted, and I have no way of getting around that. So, to get around that in this episode, and every episode going forward, I will have my voice in it. I will still show the clips, but right after I show the clip, I will go over why I think this scene deserves to be on the list. This week consists of Supergirl Season 4, Episode 4, titled Ahimsa, Arrow Season 7, Episode 4, titled Level 2, and Legend of Tomorrow Season 4, Episode 3, titled Dancing Queen. The Flash did not have an episode this week because the episode would have aired during the election night, so they pushed it off till next episode, which is good because now it aligns with Arrow and Supergirl, not so much with Legends of Tomorrow though. But with that in mind, let's get into the top 10 Arrowverse moments of the week, starting with number 10.
Welcome to Otisburg. Oh!
No! We're fighting for freedom! From roaches!
Mercy!
Now they're free.
This wasn't necessarily a very good scene, but the reason it is on the list is because I hated these two characters, and I'm so glad that they were killed off. Otis Graves was one of the worst characters in the history of the Arrowverse. I mean, the actor was terrible, the writing for him was terrible, and Mercy Graves was terrible as well, but Otis was at a whole nother level, and I'm so glad that these two characters were finally killed off.
Back alley vasectomy.
Back alley No, John, you can't!
Oh, what happened?
Ball kick paradox. You can't kick your own dad in the junk because you'd erase yourself from the timeline, which means there would be no one to kick your dad in the junk.
Bloody hell, I can't.
So Constantine is easily the best thing that's going on Legends of Tomorrow right now, so every slot on this list from Legends of Tomorrow will be from Constantine, because I didn't really like the rest of the episode, but Constantine's storyline was great, and it started off with him meeting his mother for the first time, and then that led to him technically trying to kill himself by kicking his dad in the balls. It was a funny scene, but it was also really, really dark comedy, and I thought that made for a kind of really sad scene. At the same time, it was a very funny scene, and it made for a pretty great scene in this episode. This fight scene was really the only fight scene in the episode, and it was definitely a great one. Green Arrow is still a very interesting character in this season, or the new Green Arrow, and I'm very interested to see who he or she is, and in this fight scene he was pretty great. I thought Dinah was pretty badass in this fight scene as well, and even though this isn't the greatest fight scene ever, it is still good enough to land a slot on the list.
Please don't kill us.
I'm not gonna hurt you. You shouldn't have come back here, Roy.
This reveal made me really happy about things like in the flash forwards. The fact that Roy Harper and Dinah Drake are both alive 20 years in the future was great, because those are the two main characters other than Oliver Queen from the Green Arrow comics, like on Team Arrow. So I really like the fact that those two characters are still around in the future. This is also a pretty good fight scene from Black Canary, and the fact that Dinah Drake is back to being Black Canary at some point in the future, also great as well.
It's coming for me.
What do you mean?
You know what? Forget it.
This episode reveals the person who Constantine was talking to really in the first episode of the season at the end, and he will most likely be the main villain of the season. This guy right here, while he's not being played by the same actor, he's most likely Manny from Constantine Season 1 and Angel, and he was supposed to be the main villain of the season, but the final episode of the season was never produced and was never aired. This is great, I think, because this continues the storyline of Constantine Season 1 that was unfortunately never finished, and they could definitely take this chance to finish that storyline in this season and bring Manny back as the main villain of this season of Legends of Tomorrow.
Like he doesn't matter in this story, just collateral damage? People without the last name Queen are human beings too. They have hopes, dreams, lives. Your father wasn't a hero. Mr. Queen, he was a murderer.
He saved me.
He condemned you. He is gone, but here you are caught in the same vicious cycle, paying for his crimes.
This scene is really intense. I think the actor who plays Jared Parker is great in this scene in particular. Stephen Amell is as well, and this really lays the foundation of what would become this great storyline, because it starts the idea of what if what Robert Queen in the beginning did was not actually a heroic thing, but he was actually a murderer. There's a debate about that, obviously, but the way they convey that in this scene was really great, and that led to the scene at the end with William in the life raft, which you know is definitely later on this list.
I'm close.
Just met her 20 minutes ago. Died in childbirth.
2 for 2. Sorry.
Her dad used to call me killer. Never let me forget what I did.
Father of the Year.
You wouldn't get that to look at him, would you?
While this storyline was most likely told before on Constantine Season 1, I didn't actually remember them telling the backstory of Constantine, because Season 1 Constantine is a little bit forgettable, so I am very happy they retold it in this episode. It made for a really good scene, a great refresher about his backstory, and it just, Constantine is so good in these 3 episodes of Legends of Tomorrow, in particular this episode. I loved his entire storyline, and this is my favorite scene from that story.
Wait, are you crying?
No. That's unanticipated. What? I'm not a robot. I'm techno-organic. I have feelings.
I've said it before, but Brainiac 5 is most likely the only character left on Supergirl that is an actual great character, and in scenes like this, you could definitely see that. The actor does an incredible job. I think the writing is great in this scene. The scene really makes you emphasize with Brainiac 5. The best part of the scene is easily when he says, "I'm not a robot." I mean, in that part, Jesse Rath, the actor who plays him, does an incredible job. The performance is great in this scene. It just makes Brainiac 5 a much more three-dimensional character, and even though he sometimes feels a little bit robotic, scenes like this really emphasizes that he's definitely not.
You promise me that you will forget about me. And you'll go live your life. Oh. Oh.
Dad?
William, I love you. Live.
This scene was handled so incredibly well. One thing I'll say first of all is that it looks so good. The lighting or the way they shot the scene, it looks so much better than the rest of the episode. Stephen Amell is great in this scene, and it really emphasizes how Jared Parker, or the psychiatrist, really gets to Oliver and proves his point by showing how Oliver would act in the same situation that Robert Queen was in with him. I think it was handled so incredibly well. And moving on to number 1.
No, it's impossible. William, I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this, but Felicity Smoker's dead.
You probably could have guessed that this would be number 1, and it is. It just gets me so much more excited for the flash forwards, namely because Felicity is dead. Unless if this is a fake out and it turns out she's alive, then that would be ridiculous. But it's just so great because this is something that I've wanted to see for like 4 years, or like 3 years now, ever since season 4 was airing, and the character was completely ruined. I've wanted to see her dead ever since. They've had some fake outs with her death before, but I actually feel like this one is real. Now, it is only in the flash forward, so that is a little disappointing compared to if she would actually be dead in the present day. But the fact that Dinah and Roy are still alive in the flash forwards, and Oliver is still alive as well, most likely, and Felicity is dead, just gets me so much more excited for the flash forwards going forward.